Hello again, guys. Welcome back to another episode today. Before I begin today's chapter, I would like to firstly congratulate our Jewish brothers and sisters for Yom Kippur, Gmar Chatima Tova. Secondly, I'd like to thank all of my new subscribers on the channel, and I promise you there's lots more to come. So, dipping into today's episode straight away, I begin with a study that I found while I was researching a couple of statistics to do with the occupied territories in the West Bank. And I came across a study for B'Tselem, which is one of the biggest, if not the biggest, Israeli human rights group concerned with the Palestinian territories. Now, they called the study, the publication, a regime of Jewish supremacy from the Jordan River to the sea. This is apartheid. Now, I wanted to highlight this study because it doesn't just address the issues that Palestinians face in the West Bank and Gaza, but rather it calls for a change, which is the approach that we need today. We don't highlight these issues just to put the blame on the Israeli government side. For example, we are highlighting these things because they are the main roots of the problem that we want to solve. So when they make a publication and they tell you 1, 2, 3, 4, this is what the Palestinians are suffering from in this area, and this is why we call the current regime so-and-so, apartheid in this case, they don't just want to highlight the issue as a problem, but rather call for it to change, which is a very good thing. Moving on from the publication of B'Tselem, I give a reference to Umar ibn Abdul Aziz, who is referenced as Umar II, and he was a ruler in ancient Islamic history when one of his governors in the Khorasan area, which is what is modern day Iran, Afghanistan, Kazakhstan, these areas over there, sent him a letter saying that basically the people of this land know nothing but force, so I want to use force to set them straight. And he got a response from Caliph Umar II telling him, you lied, but justice and truth will set them straight, and know that God does not fix the work of the corruptors. Now, I got this example for various reasons. Number one, because of the wisdom of this guy. And secondly, because in Islamic history, traditionally, where the Muslims expanded with force, they faced more problems, not just when they were using force, but following that. And when they expanded by trade, and when people got into Islam whenever they wanted to, obviously, because of their trade relations with Muslim countries and Arab countries, they remained peacefully with no frictions for decades to this day. Which just gives you an example of when you do not use force and don't have any compulsion to a specific ideology or way of governing or religion, the people of those areas tend to live in more harmony with anyone who's coming from abroad, no matter what their color is, their religion is, or their race is. Moving on from the Umar II chapter, I reach the violent elements of the conflict. Now, this is a very important one because I highlight how the violent cycle starts with dehumanization. So the Israeli side dehumanizes the Palestinians to use control and force against them. Palestinians, in their resistance to Israel, sometimes do use dehumanization of Jews as a whole to justify their acts against them. Both are equally reprehensible. Why? Number one, because they don't follow reason when basing the conflict or violence against the other side. Now, obviously, what we want to do is dismantle the violence altogether. However, it is very concerning when violence is established not on reasons, but on identity. Because then you increase the cycle of violence and include way more innocent people in it. You stop targeting people who directly kill you or directly oppress you or directly attack you, but rather the population as a whole, because they belong to a specific identity, a specific nationality, or a specific religion. Now, I gave previous references before on how the more deprived the area is, the more resistance you have. And I mention in this chapter as well how we need to dismantle the violent cycle by addressing the inequality issues and making them fairer and equal to the other locations where people move in freely, live in more peace, and have more equal rights. Then we reach administrative detention. Now, I highlight this because this is one of the key areas and key highlights of injustice when it comes to Palestinians. By 2020, over 300 Palestinians were detained under what Israel calls administrative detention. Administrative detention is supposed to be a preventative measure used by the Israeli forces whenever they suspect that someone is about to do something, but they have nothing against them. So, I can suspect that so-and-so, who's walking around the street, is gonna commit a terror act, for example. I go and detain him. Someone posted something online. He said, oh, hail so-and-so, this group, that movement. I suspect that he's going to do something because he lives next to a settlement. I have no proof against him. It might be something that he said. It might not be anything at all. And then they detain him. When they detain him, he doesn't have access to legal aid. Their family don't know where his whereabouts. Neither his friends, no one. And that can last for several months. Administrative detention is one of the brutal phases of occupation that must end now. Moving on from administrative detention, I speak about house demolitions and expulsions. Historically, and to this day, Israel constantly harasses people out of their homes in specific locations. Jerusalem, for example, Hebron in the West Bank, and other areas within Israeli territory as well. Now, when I talk about house expulsions, they use several means to expel people out of their homes. Pressure, constant bullying and harassment. So they will, for example, prevent people from visiting each other, prevent the residents of the house from going there. Look at Sheikh Jarrah, for example. They'll put a settler exactly next to them, behind their house, have forces outside their home 24/7. That's basically the stick. And then they use the carrot, which is very, very high prices. And traditionally, they come from America, by the way. Millions of dollars offered to these people just to go out of their homes when they don't want to leave the houses that they were living in since the day they were born. Secondly, the demolition part. Israel demolishes lots of the areas it does not recognize, whether it's villages or homes built in specific locations, and the list moves on. Another thing they do is, whenever there's a terrorist activity against Israeli civilians or Israeli forces, they wouldn't just punish the person who committed it, because they're usually eliminated anyway. They will go and demolish his family's house. Now, any violent action against innocent people is reprehensible and condemned. However, let's say someone committed a crime and it's a direct crime against civilians, for example, for argument's sake, and he killed someone. What does his direct family have to do, and why do you need to demolish their house? And if it happens on the other side, would you do the same thing? House demolitions and expulsions must stop with immediate effect. Otherwise, the violent cycle will constantly be justified, and Israel will prove again and again that it's here to expel you from your home and take over your land and support the ongoing rhetoric that doesn't play in its favor.